Don't be shy. Yes, there's a hand.
Hi, my name is Ajahn, and first welcome to Israel. Hope you enjoy your time here. It's a lovely country.
Yes.
And I have a question about a topic you haven't touched yet. It's meditation. I started practicing recently, and I really enjoy it, but I get the opposite result from what everyone else is saying. Like my mind is kind of very busy and go to really different places, and I can't get the quietness that I was expecting. Like I really enjoy it because I'm getting far with my head, with my thoughts, and getting all kinds of ideas. But it's not quiet. It's actually my busiest time of the day. It's 30 minutes a day, but still it's wow. I get with these thoughts so far. It's I'm not getting the quietness. And second, so the question is like, if it's okay, or do you have kind of tricks or fast way to get this mindfulness that everyone is talking about?
Yeah, so, well, just to respond to that, it's a very good question. Yeah, I have many tricks.
Let me ask the other question.
Okay.
And, okay. The second one, if there is a reason behind the color of your outfits, and if it's, I see different colors for every kind of groups. And the third question, if you read your horoscope.
I respond to the first question. So, yeah, the with meditation and all aspects of spiritual practice, it's never the fact that one size fits all. Yeah. Different things suit different people, and so if your mind is very very busy, and if you try and confine it too tightly, then it breaks out. Then you have to adjust your practice to meet that. Like when I was a kid, I used to ride horses, and when I was about 15, my parents bought me a new horse, and it seemed quite a very very fine animal. It was it looked kind of quite calm and bright and a good horse. And the way that we looked after the horses in my family home, I grew up on a farm, and so the horses would be out eating grass in the fields during the day, and then at night time we put them in the stable, like the little house for the horses. So we got this new horse, brought him back, and then put him in the stable for the night. In the morning we found the stable door was open and he's out eating the grass. Oh, and we saw that he'd broken the latch on the stable door. Okay, next night, and put a bar on the door as well. Next morning, he's out, broken the bar, broken the latch. Okay, fix it again. Close the bottom, close the top, 2 bars on the door. Next morning, he's out again. Okay, this is getting serious. So put some heavy-duty bars on the door to keep him inside during the night, and he kicked the side of the building off. So at that point we realized Cavalier needs space. If he was just out in the field, he was fine. He just did not accept being kept in a little box. Nope, not going to stand for that. So we just stopped trying to put him in the stable, and he was fine. So in exactly the same way, you need to give your mind a bit more space, so you can give it more of a job to do. So in the meditation, there's various different things you can use to vary, to make a more complex or involved object. So one of the things that's very helpful is to use the feelings of your body as the meditation object. So you can start with bringing your attention to your face and feeling, not with your fingers, but internally, looking at feeling the sensations in your face, in your forehead, around your eyes, your jaw. Slowly moving your attention piece by piece through the whole body. And then, so you're giving it a job to do. You're not just giving it a single thing like, go to my breath and stay there. Like with Cavalier, my horse, it won't stay in the box. So give it a bit more of a bigger paddock, a bigger field playing. So you follow the sensations down your left arm, all the way to your fingers, then your right arm, all the way to your fingers. And then if you suddenly realize, oh wait a minute, I'm off in India, exploring the Himalayas. Now, what was the last thing I remember? Oh right, my right elbow. Okay, back to the right elbow, carry on. And so you slowly work your way through the whole body, piece by piece. And then you're using a more so complex or involved object, but also as you bring the attention through the body, then you can also consciously relax, like relaxing your face, relaxing your neck, your shoulders, and so that along with paying attention to the feelings of the body, you're helping to steer them in a way that is useful and is beneficial. And so then that relaxation of the body, the calming of the body, then helps to condition a calming of the mind. So if you try that out and see what the effect is. So the reason why I wear this colour is that this is the colour that the forest monks in Thailand wear. And so this is dyed with the sap of the jackfruit tree. I don't know if jackfruits grow in Israel? No? Don't have it. They're very delicious. But the sap of the tree, the kind of liquid in the tree, is a dark brown colour. And so that to get this dye, you can't buy this dye in a shop. So to make it, you have to take a log of the tree and chop it into very small chips. It takes a couple of days. And then you boil it up. You boil it for many, many, many hours, and you make dye from the sap of the wood. And then you dye the cloth with that. So this is the colour of the jackfruit tree. And then horoscopes. I don't look at my horoscope every day. So usually, that's I leave that to other people if they're interested. Yeah.
I was wondering if there are fields or I guess certain kinds of topics or discussions that usually bring up anger. Either people that work in education have difficult children that they work with, or people that are active in political fields or social fields. Some fields will automatically make you angry. So I was wondering if you would suggest to avoid, like to channel your energy towards things that you can manage without anger, or to turn to the topics that might be more challenging, even if it makes you angry, and then you spread this energy around, then you end up leaving the discussion, or I don't know, the classroom very angry, having shouted, or having probably not made anyone feel better.
Yes, a good question. What I would suggest is getting to understand anger would be more helpful. Sometimes when we are in a situation, we know that a situation is we're going to be out of our depth, it's going to be too strong, then it's good to compose the mind first of all, and to consider, okay, this is going to be a really difficult meeting. Okay, can I not create those people? Can I just be with this feeling of, here comes a difficult meeting? That's what this feeling is. But what I suggest, that there's a method whereby we can explore emotion. So say there's a particular trigger word for you, that as you say, something that makes you angry. So back in the era in Britain of Margaret Thatcher, you could just you can encourage people to meditate on the word her. And that was enough. Everybody knew who she was, and you could guarantee that 99% of the people on the retreat were had a certain reaction with the name of Margaret Thatcher. She was not a very popular Prime Minister for various reasons. So, but what you can do, and it's a kind of practice I encourage a lot, so when you're in the quiet of your own home, your apartment, you're by yourself, and you know that there's a trigger that something sets your mind off, like the reforms, the education reforms, or the head teacher, or whatever. And you know what the issue is. So what you do with this practice is you bring your mind to as much of a quality of stillness and focus as you can. And in a way, you're training yourself to respond. You're finding a bit more space around that. So, say you have a difficult relationship with a head teacher. You're a school teacher, and the head sets off that reaction. So in the quiet of your own apartment, you sit down, relax the mind, let it be as empty as possible, and then just bring to mind the name of that person, or just him. You know the story already, so you're deliberately not trying to go in and explore all the details. You're just triggering the emotion. So you just bring that person's face to mind, or their name, or just the problem. And then the most difficult bit of this practice is then after you've launched it, is then to deliberately let go of the content, the story of what he just said today. I can't believe it. He's done it again. Okay, that's important, significant, but right now I'm not paying attention to that, but rather, where in my body do I feel that rage? Where is it? And so it's trying to make it as non-verbal as possible. To just feel the physical sensation. So if it's anger, then where is it in your body? Is it a vibration? Is it like a steel bar across your shoulders? Is it a tightness in your throat? Is it a knot in your belly? Is it just heat everywhere? What is it? How does it feel? So you're not letting the mind go into it should or it shouldn't be this way, or I like it or I don't like it. To keep it as simple as possible, here it is. This is the feeling of rage. It's like this. And then just keeping the attention on the physical sensation of it. Then having invited it into being, then to establish this quality of, a lot of, like I was saying, like with empathy with other people, to have a sense of acceptance. This is how it is. This is this feeling. It's this way. And even the most intensive emotions, whether it's grief, or fear, or anger, or jealousy, when you look at the physical side of it, it's never actually that bad. It might be like a headache, or a twisted limb, or a toothache, but the actual physical painfulness of an emotion, it's usually not that unbearable. It's not pleasant, but it's bearable. That kind of that tension, or that heat, or that vibration. So then, having launched it, then consciously let yourself stay with that and attend to it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So you're deliberately letting it be there and just reflecting. This is that feeling of anger. It's like this. Here it is. And as your mind tries to chase off into the stories, no. Right now, I'm not interested in that. Let's just stay with the feeling of it. Now, where is it? How is it? So you're cultivating that quality of acceptance of just, here it is. And so in a way, this is like a loving kindness, that you're not liking it, but you're recognizing it's this way. This is the particular pattern of nature feels like this. So then after a few minutes of that, then you consciously start to let go of it, and particularly using the feeling of the out-breath to allow it to diminish, to dissolve and fade. And so then it's important in this practice to stay with it, to stay with the letting go until it's naturally faded on its own. And it can take 5 seconds to launch that feeling and 45 minutes to let it go. But it's important just to stay with that and to be with it until the whole cycle has completed. So at the end of that, you are able to be back in a way where you began. The mind still and calm and open. So in that whole process, you've launched that feeling, the emotion, you've watched it come into being, you've known it, you've accepted it, and you've watched it fade away. You know directly from your own experience it's not a permanent, solid thing. It's an event. It's a pattern of experience that arises, does its thing, passes away. So if you develop that and run that a few times, then when you're in a live situation, then rather than going to, I can't believe you just said that, and then part of you is also going to know, oh, it's that anger reaction. And here it is, it's in my gut once again. Or it's that steel bar across the shoulders feeling. Here it is. And part of you is able to accept, oh, this is just that cycle of feeling. It comes into being, it feels like this. And then in that moment you find there's a bit more space around it. And so that even though you're face to face and you've got to work with the situation, part of you also knows, don't get lost in it. It's just that cycle of emotion. It's nothing to push away, nothing to be afraid of. It's just this. And in my experience of working with this, and I use this a lot particularly with fear, if you're patient and you work with it over time, then it really transforms the way that you relate to emotional reactivity. So you don't have to run away from it, but by getting interested in it and working with it, you realize that we don't have to be a victim of our habits or our reactive patterns, but they can rather be our teachers, because you learn how to develop the kind of patience and acceptance that enables us to say, not just be pulled along by those patterns. And the more that you're, again, you're not just being passive. It's not a matter of just saying nothing, but you can respond by having a more of a sense of, okay, is this the right moment to say something? I want to get cheeky here. I want to let that person have it. Is this the right moment? What's the right thing to say? What's going to be the way to communicate what I'm feeling that can actually be received? Because if I just attack back, then they shut the door, and then we just have two monologues going. You know, I'm talking at them, they're talking at me. There's no communication. When we allow a bit more space in that communication, then we're able to receive what they're saying, and then you're speaking from a place of mindfulness and attunement, and then you actually find that you can communicate. And the other person knows that. They know they're not being attacked. And then there's a bit more capacity in them to hear and to receive what you're saying. Yes?
You've said very important things, and all of us should be all attuned to them and probably master them and practice. And my question is a double question, double-decker. One is on a personal level, how far can we go with this? In other words, when do you reach for your gun? I mean, don't you ever? And one might say, well, the other one shouldn't draw his gun. That's the whole matter. People should be loving. So I'm wondering whether we can translate it in this country that you are visiting to a supra-personal level.
Mm-hmm.
I love them. I will do no harm to them. How about not Muhammad, Charles, who has become Daesh, and killed. I mean, can we be empathetic? Secondly, it's probably part of a possible answer. There is a nation that grew with Buddhism from many millions to 1.25 billion. And, with all opinions of Gandhi, it's not one way, but he taught India a lot. Then when it came to fight for their lives, they were very, very aggressive. So can a religion go that up too?
Well, I've never tried to govern a country myself. So
everyone here is a prime minister.
Well, good luck. But in all seriousness, I don't have a gun, and I'm not even allowed to touch a gun, according to my rules. And so that the Buddha, he was a soldier before he was a monk. He's from a warrior noble caste. So a lot of the language he uses in terms of giving spiritual direction, he uses military language. And so one of the kind of epithets he had was the conqueror, Jina, the conqueror. So that his warrior past sort of filters its way through. But he created the monastic order as a sort of a peace army. And so that is there as an example. If you ask me, when do I reach for my gun? I'm a monk, so I have no gun. But in terms of in terms of other people, again, it might seem to be evading the question, but I would say that it's important to try and relate to others in as non-violent a way as possible. I've been on the receiving end of violent attack as a monk, and if you find a way to communicate, you can avoid, and not only just avoid harm for yourself, but also you can bring about benefit for others. I've seen this happen myself, and also in other encounters that different nuns or monks in my community have had. That there was this one monk, Kirisaro, who actually taught here in Israel a few times when he was a monk. He's a layman now, but when he was a monk, he was on a train, and this bunch of football supporters came on to the carriage with him. This has happened to me as well, and they verbally attacked him, started abusing him, and kind of making fun of him and calling him names and so forth. And he's a pretty strong person spiritually. He was also a wrestler before he was a monk. So under the ropes, he could handle himself. He was the Eastern States wrestling champion of the US for his weight. He's a little guy, but packed. So anyway, these guys started abusing him and insulting him, and so as he wouldn't meet them on their own terms. He didn't react by being afraid, but he just approached them and connect and sort of talk to them as person to person. And he's a pretty quick talker as well. And what happened was that the leader of this group was the one who was doing most of the abuse. As the encounter went on, he was insulting him and swearing at him, and slowly but surely, as the encounter went on, the guy started saying things like, I don't really like to be this way, this isn't something I really want to do. And his mates start thinking, what's wrong with Jeff? And he literally ended up in tears. Like in the course of this 3-hour train journey, the head of the gang is sitting there crying, saying, "I really hate it. I'm just so angry all the time. I just want to fight with people, and this is miserable. I'm stuck in this, in this, and I can't get out of it." And his mates are thinking, "What's happened to him?" And you might think this is a kind of Walt Disney type encounter. Oh yeah, right. Well, you haven't faced a Palestinian with a gun, but that my experience is that if you are determined not to act in a violent way, then that also opens up a door for the others to not be violent too. A monk in our group who was on pilgrimage in India got attacked by 6 bandits, and with axes. They were cutting wood in the forest, and they surrounded him and threatened him, and they were armed, and the guy's holding an axe over his head. And so the monk just put his hands together and started chanting the Namo Tassa, Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. And the guy couldn't bring the axe down. And the monk then got a bit cheeky. He kind of marked the spot and he said, "Go on." And that's called pushing your luck. But still, the guy couldn't bring his head, he couldn't bring the axe down. And they took all his stuff. They left him with his sarong and his sandals. They took everything else. So they were still going to do their robbing, but they left him with his life and not a scratch on him. So you ask, when do you reach for your gun? I've never been in that situation in my life.
When one reaches.
Yeah. So I feel that the most important thing, if you're really mindful, if you pay attention to the situations that you're in, or how things unfold, then that I would suggest there's always going to be a way to work with it, the way you don't have to reach for your gun, because as soon as you do, then there's only one dialogue that's going to happen. So that's what I would recommend. But then also, in terms of governing a country, my understanding in Thailand is that they have a policy of non-aggression. I've never had to govern a country on Buddhist principles. what they do, they have a policy of non-aggression. So if other people try and cross their borders, then they'll repel them with military force, but they won't invade anybody else's territory. They also encourage spiritual qualities within the army. So if you were an army officer in the Thai army, every 10 years you get 3 months paid leave to go and be a monk. Yeah, and it's the same for women. That every 10 years, so that they want people with spiritual qualities in their army, so that they know how not to react, but they can relate with integrity, with respect, and deal with situations from a humane basis. So that to me, I mean, there's lots of problems in Thailand. It's not a perfect country by any means, but in terms of an example of how a country trying to run itself on Buddhist principles uses the aspect of military force, then that's not a bad example. Okay, yes.
Brother, first I want to thank you very much. Can you please address more idea that everything on the outside is a reflection of my inner what happened is a reflection of my inner world.
So the principle that everything that I perceive,
That everything that I perceive, that everything in the outside world is a reflection of my inner, what happens in my inner world. We can, I don't know, maybe it's too long.
well, I understand what you're saying, but that it's that everything in the outside world is a reflection of my inner world. I would never really put it that way in my own words, and you don't find the Buddha speaking in those terms. I would say everything that I perceive in the world around me, it's conditioned or it's affected by my own conditioning, by the language that I speak.
Well, I didn't, that was what I meant. I didn't express myself well.
Yeah, so it's a very important insight, because if I know this is my version of the world, if I have that very clearly in consciousness, then I know that your version of the world is going to be different. So I won't assume that you see things the same way that I do. So in terms of empathy or respect for somebody else's position, and that's one of the reasons why there's so much conflict in the world, is that we easily go around thinking everyone does see the world the same way that I do, and that if they don't, then they should, because I'm right, and if I believe it, it's true. That's the kind of delusion that we go under. But if we instead recognize, well, the way I see the world is my version of the world, but why should that be the only version? Just because I think it, what makes that true? Yeah. But so it's important to respect in that sense, to know that this is just my particular opinion or my point of view, and that the more I can say and immediately have a sense of, well, other people see it differently. And this was very peculiar to me when I first went into the monastery 36 years ago. Yeah, I didn't think I had opinions. Yeah. And I couldn't understand why these stupid monks kept talking about having views and opinions. Yeah, and I just thought, well, no, what I see is true, and what I think is right. If other people think differently, they're wrong. They might be good people, but they're not. They're wrong. And I was completely unaware of how sort of foolish and conceited that was. And so what was pointed out to me was that, well, that's not a fact, that's just your opinion. I said, no, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. I said, well, your opinion is that that's a fact. I said, no, just stop playing mind games. Yeah. But what it became clear was that what I thought was true today, in a month's time, I thought something else was true. So what did that say about my truth of a month ago? If I'm right now, then I must have been wrong then. And so what does that say about how I see things now. So it took a long time to sink in, when I was first started to meditate and watch the mind. But it slowly but surely, it became clear that that our thoughts, our opinions, are just one version of reality. And the more that I didn't realize how English I was until I lived with Australians and Americans and French people. I thought I was normal. It's incredibly stupid. Really, I thought I'm normal, and then you're living with foreigners. But after a while you realize, if the Australian thinks they're normal too. And realizing that Englishness is not the standard for ultimate reality, but it's just a different set of conditioning and patterns of habit. So the more that I can recognize, this is just English conditioning, or this is just male conditioning, this is because of my education or my language, I see it this way. If I was an Israeli woman, I would see it differently. And that even if I can't imagine myself into your way of seeing things, I can respect the fact, her world is different from my world. And the more that I can recognize that, these are not the same, then I can make space for someone else having different opinions. And in the States, I was living at this monastery in California, and I was co-abbot. Another monk and I led the place together. And very, very often, some situation would arise, and I would think, we should do X. And then he would say, I think actually Y would be much better. And over again, we would have a completely different perception of the situation. And so I would see something, and at first I would make the judgment on it, and then I would realize, hang on a minute, what's Ajahn Amaro going to think about this? And then I'd ask him, and he'd say, actually, I think it'd be much better if we did Y instead of X. And I go, I never thought of that. And over again, I would be pleasantly surprised at how good his ideas were. And so over that period of time, I got very, very used to working and decision-making informed by someone with a very different perspective, who would see things in a very different way to me. And so I realized that's an extremely important tool to use, to keep remembering that our version of what's right, what's good, what's beautiful, what's going to work is different from others. And so it helps us to develop what you can call a consultative attitude. You consult with others. What do you think? Or how does that look to you? Rather than we should do this, or this is right. That say, what do you think? How do you see this? And the more that we reach out and invite the perspective of others and say, how does this look to you? Or what do you think? Then sometimes we can be frustrated because someone wants or suggests the opposite of what we like. But I find more often than not, I'm pleasantly surprised, but people have a greater range of experience and perceptions that I'm not always right. I haven't always got the perfect solution. And that by, say, taking into account the perceptions of others, we not only find a greater harmony with them, but also we find more creative ways of problem solving and dealing with the day-to-day issues of our family or our work or the country. So I'm a great proponent of dialogue and that kind of consulting rather than the sort of dictating. And that in terms of establishing peace on an outer level, on a political level, that I would suggest that collaboration and dialogue between people, and even when you have sort of reactive habits against a particular person or a particular group, to say, well, hang on a minute, let's just listen to them, let's just hear what they have to say, let's take it in, and then through that listening and that readiness to try and appreciate and at least respect the way others see things, then it has a powerful effect and can really bring a very, very good result. One of the in the early days of our monastery in California, one of the novices was African American, and up to that point, most of the people in the Buddhist groups and people that I'd met were all sort of middle-class white American people. And then meeting this guy and living with him, his experience of being a young black male in America was very, very different. It was a very different America than the experience of the white middle-class people. And it was a real eye-opener to being in situations with him and how he read what was going on and what affected him, and how he saw what was done in the monastery, the choices that we made. And it was, it opened up a very wide, the field in a wider way to appreciate this whole big sector of American society that I hadn't realized. You don't realize how white you are until you live with black people. You don't realize how English you are until you live with others. And I'm sure you don't realize quite how Israeli you are till you have to work with others. And that readiness to be stretched and to, oh wow, look at that. I never even saw it. I had no idea that was how things were perceived. Look at that. And then it's a humbling quality. You have to be more humble, but it also it makes you more useful and more able to work effectively in the world. So I see we've reached 9:30, so I'm sure we have many other good questions, but I understand that we've probably only got this hall for a certain amount of time, and we don't want to incur the negativity of the authorities. So we'll draw things to a close there.
If you could bear with us for 2 minutes, okay, you may go.
All right, good.
So Ajahn, thank you ever so much. We have, I'll take the mic. Thank you so much for this beautiful evening. We've got many old people here, and dying people, and dead people. Not enough of the fourth, Devaduta, the samana, the monk. So it's always great benefit and great, if I may say, pleasure when monks visit us. So thank you very much for that. If I may quote you, Ajahn was telling us the other day about a monk about 100 years ago in Thailand, Ajahn Sao, that was considered an arahant, and he gave a beautiful Dhamma talk, which I'll quote the whole Dhamma talk, which was, it's good to be good. So I must say it's very good to be with so many good people. So thank you ever so much for coming. For me it's a great pleasure. We've got 2 Dana boxes here. One is pink and one is blue, but it doesn't go according to the gender. It just happened like that. So you may use either one of them or both if you wish. And the Dana mostly goes to support Ajahn and Ajahn Sangha and the Amaravati monastery in England, which is an inspiring place, even if you haven't been there ever. So it's good to have monasteries, good to have monks, and thank you all for this lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Go well.